And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. The Supreme Court of British Columbia was established in 1859 as the Supreme Court of the mainland of British Columbia to distinguish it from the Supreme Court of Vancouver Island. The two courts merged in 1870 under the present name. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to 1991.
The British Columbia Supreme Court took 3 years before Chief Justice Alan McEachran levied his judgment on the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en land claims case. Many felt the decision would be the end of a long, arduous struggle for Native leaders and their people. However, there is now evidence that the judgment may only be the beginning of a much longer battle. First of all, there was McEachran's decision. It was a blatant, unequivocal no. There was no gray area, no reason for doubt, and while some found great comfort in that answer, legal counsel for the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en did not.
We argued that the principles which we thought were lofty principles of recognition of rights and title, recognized in the Sparrow decision and should have been applied in this one, these principles were not applied in this case. He rejects Sparrow. He ignores the arguments of the principles of law that were established in that case. He's ignoring the Supreme Court of Canada.
The Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en people can now use the appeal process and have until April 8th to do just that in BC Supreme Court. However, it seems the natives feel that Canada's Supreme Court was ignored, and that may sway their movement.
In effect, what he does here is to place back in time the legal principles to what are the pre-Calder days. And we say, on a review of the judgment that we've had to this point, that the judgment sounds like the assimilationist policy of the 1969 White Paper. He doubts whether the Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en were even an organized society at the time of the arrival of the first British. He says that even if the rights weren't extinguished, I'm still not sure that there was an organized society. That wasn't a problem for the Supreme Court of Canada in Sparrow, for the Musqueam people.
While legal counsel for the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en consider the court, Native leaders may already be a step ahead. Negotiations on a federal basis continue as this feature comes to you, so in many ways, the McEachran decision could be somewhat moot.
As soon as we went into this action in 1984, the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en had already changed their whole tactical type of approach on this thing, and what we were trying to do is create an environment where we could get the type of decision that we want. Now you've got part of that, and McEachran was not part of all of the other things that we were doing, and but it's been a good exercise to go through this, and like I say, the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en aren't going to change. We're going to get worse in terms of the approach that we've taken, and I'm hoping that everybody else in the province does the same. And I think that momentum that we've got is going to spread right across the whole country.
So has the past few years been a waste of time for the judicial system and natives alike? Well, according to the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en, no.
You may think your evidence is lost, but it's not. It still sits there on record in court, and there are others who will judge it.
That was a dip into the past, and although the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en bands have to look to the future, they may also rely on a familiar scenario to get their views in focus to the province. To coin a phrase, 1990 could rightly be called the summer of discontent. Roadblocks and public protests were more often than not the order of the day, as natives mobilized to add emphasis to their awareness campaign. Obviously, the delays and roadblocks met their intended objective, disrupting public transportation and forcing authorities to take heed.
They have no right blocking off a public road.
It's a nuisance, a plain, ordinary nuisance.
It's total anarchy right now.
It's political action, and we depend on the government for leadership, and they'll do something if they're hit in the pocketbooks.
Make them abide by the laws like we have to abide by the laws. If we went and sat there, what would they do to us?
Okay, watch out, John. So what does the middle of 1991 hold in store for people in British Columbia's northwest? The only certain thing is that native leaders hold that answer. Gitxsan spokesperson Don Ryan says, "Just watch us." And Herb George portrayed an even more ominous tone.
And we will express ourselves and we will exert ourselves in a fashion that they have never seen before. And we will keep standing up until the crown, the federal crown, the provincial crown, and the judiciary of this country finally recognizes us as the rightful owners of this land, who have ownership and jurisdiction to this land. The first peoples of this land.
Exactly what form that expression will take remains to be seen.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. According to a 1983 DFO report, it took over 4 years after Kenny Dam was built for the water to reach the design maximum elevation of 2,800 feet above sea level in January 1957. Let us return to the archives to bring you this 1991 story of the Kemano completion project.
Environmental protection has become a fact of life in today's industrial world. On the Kemano completion project, Alcan's Mike Bruno has the task of dealing with environmental issues and government requirements.
Today, environmental concerns play a major role in construction activities, and the Kemano completion project is no exception to this rule. A key mandate of our environmental group is to minimize adverse construction impacts on land, water, and air. Proximity to important salmon habitat make water quality a prime concern of this project. Methods that we follow to ensure this goal are to properly treat the water, as an example from the power tunnel and powerhouse construction activities. Also, our construction camps are serviced by sewage treatment plants that discharge the treated effluent to ground, thereby minimizing the impacts on any watercourse or river. Another important mandate of our environmental group is close communication with the government agencies, both the federal and provincial agencies, because this project requires approximately 225 permits for the construction activities, which are obtained from 11 different government agencies. We also have on site at present 2 environmental supervisors from our environmental consulting firm Triton, who monitor construction activities on a regular basis in order to ensure that the special conditions of the contract and permit conditions are followed.
Here at Heretsky, our main concern is treating the effluent that comes out of the power tunnel and created by the tunnel boring machine. Our main concern is oils and greases from the machine and suspended solids, fines that are ground up by the machine when it's in operation. To deal with this effluent, Power Mountain has built 5 settling ponds, and this allows the effluent time from pond to pond to settle out fines. To deal with any oils and greases, there's an oil skimmer and sorbent booms. Lastly, it goes through a filter plant where it's further filtered for fines and chemicals. The filter plant filters approximately 3,000 cubic meters of effluent a day. After the filter plant, The effluent goes out through some leach lines that run for about 300 meters below Heretsky Road. The water comes out through small holes in these leach lines and filters into the ground. And that way we protect Heretsky Creek from any deleterious substances from the tunnel.
The most obvious byproduct of the tunneling process is the rock from the tunnel. It must be disposed of in an environmentally safe manner. Any muck that seeps into creeks or rivers threatens salmon spawning beds, with suffocation from the sediment.
As a requirement of the Ministry of Environment, you will see that there is a 20-meter buffer zone maintained between the toe of the muck pile and Heretsky Creek. This ensures that no muck material from the pile goes into Heretsky Creek.
Triton environmental consultants have been involved with the Kemano completion project for more than a decade. Clyde Mitchell has been a key figure throughout this process. As well as planning and implementation, Triton is also involved in an ongoing review of the project and its environmental concerns.
In order to accomplish the review of all the environmental aspects of the project in a timely manner, ALCAN, the Department of Fisheries, and the BC Ministry of the Environment set up the Kemano River Working Group to discuss environmental problems, designs, and issues surrounding the construction of the project. The committee meets approximately once a month to discuss various environmental issues related to the project. An example of these is the location of the transmission lines along the Kemano and Kildala River valleys, where the alignment was altered significantly based on the input of the government agencies.
Environmental issues are continuing concerns for all involved in the Kemano completion project.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Imagine sharing a schoolroom with students of all ages, with brothers and sisters and cousins, and being taught year after year by the same teacher. It seems a far cry from the modern school world of today, but as recently as 50 years ago, it was a reality in the rural pioneer education system. Let us return to the archives with Susan Clegg.
I had a lot of trouble actually when I first came up because it was a new experience. This was my first teaching job and it was all new to me. And incorporating the year 2000 was totally new as well. So we did a lot of work through September, October, November in getting it set up so that it would incorporate the year 2000. And it's actually worked quite well. There's a lot of really good support from the school district, which I've been really lucky and happy for. But a lot of times you feel really isolated because of the fact that there's not a lot of other teachers up here.
There's not a lot of anything up there, but that hasn't interfered with the instruction that the children get. Meziadin falls into the Terrace District, which is trying to incorporate the year 2000 program into as many of its schools as possible. The Meziadin Schoolhouse is the perfect example of cooperative and assisted learning. The children aren't necessarily separated by grade or age, but rather by their skill level.
Under the new programming, the kids aren't really separated a lot. I've got kids that are actually supposed to be in the year 3 that are doing year 4 work. I've got kids that are in year 2 that are doing year 3 work. Some go the other way as well. It depends. Some are good in their math, and so they're higher up in their math, while others are better in their reading, and so they're higher up in their reading. So there's no real division. I do a lot of stuff through themes, which incorporates them all.
Although the children are grouped together, individuality plays a big part of the year 2000 program. Addressing each child's own needs and helping them think for themselves is a big priority. Testing is still done to make sure the students understand what is being taught to them, but the group atmosphere helps to minimize the competitiveness usually found in a classroom.
It does relieve a lot of the pressures. A lot of it is based more on that the kids are kept up with their own peer group rather than falling behind and suddenly being the oldest one in the class where they're the only one of that age and all the rest are younger than them and stuff. It keeps them going with their own group, and I think that helps a lot. With these children in the school here, a lot of it is working together and realizing that everybody's different and not everybody's the same. Realizing that they can do their work at their own level and not have to worry about whether somebody's ahead of them or somebody's behind them, because it's just how fast and how quickly they can work.
Once the children reach an age or advancement level for grade 4, they're bused to school in Stewart. Most of the kids live around the Mesiadin area, so they have about an hour's bus ride to face each way. But leaving their own community and starting at a new school probably won't be their biggest problem.
I think the biggest thing will be whether or not the grade classroom that they go into is actually incorporated in the year 2000. I think that that's going to be the biggest problem, because they have been used to working a lot on their own speed, and to suddenly go back into a really structured classroom, I think will be really hard on them.
But the kids are definitely not thinking that far ahead. The day we visited was open house. Susan assured us that the classroom is not usually this disrupted, but having your mom or dad and a TV crew in the class at the same time was just a little much.
Come on, turn around here.
Although Susan's students are young, they're probably not too young to realize how lucky they are. While other kids gaze out the window and daydream about being outside, the Mesiadin students often conduct their classes outside. Susan uses her view and location to her advantage. With the school situated right along the riverbank, it gave the class the perfect opportunity to watch the salmon run. The school's location is a luxury Susan relishes.
It's been a lot of fun. I've done a lot of things with these kids that you couldn't do if you were in a bigger school. For instance, if it's nice out, often we'll stay outside, and they'll play. One day we stayed outside and we made snowmen for an hour in the afternoon rather than coming in. And it's just because there's a chance out here. We don't have bells. We've got a fire alarm and stuff, but we don't have bells to go by, so it's basically a time set thing. And if something takes longer, well, then it takes longer.
It's that attitude that the children and the parents like. Tara Higgins is a kindergarten student at Mesiadin. Her father is relieved that she can do her schooling so close to home and in a smaller classroom.
I always liked the fact that if there's a smaller amount of kids in a small school, they'll get more one-on-one with the teacher, as opposed to a large school where there's a lot of kids.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
The Pacific Northwest Music Festival has been a major annual event in Terrace for the last 54 years. It is a competitive festival affiliated with Music Fest Canada. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Marilyn Kerr.
We have choir, school choir and adult choir, church choir. We have solo work, as in solo instrument, piano, singing and speech. The school bands. The school band is a very exciting competition this year because we're now a regional qualifier for the National Band and Choir Championship. So some or a few of the bands and choirs from our area will be invited to Music Fest, which is the national competition for band, which is going to be held in Vancouver this year in May. So that's exciting for the students to be able to go on to that.
Is that something new? Had they previously not been able to advance to Music Fest?
Well, not from here. If they wanted to qualify to advance to Music Fest before this year, they would have had to travel to a qualifying festival, which I think the closest was in Kelowna. So we're really happy because this really opens it up for our students in this area. And as a result of that, this year we have 46 bands in competition, and they're here from Fort St. John and Mackenzie, plus our Houston, plus the regular Kitimat, Terrace, Prince Rupert people that come and support our festival well every year. So we're really pleased that we're able to do that because It is something else to strive for all the students and their teachers.
Now, not every competition at this festival is competitive, though.
There are some non-competitive classes, a lot of non-competitive school choir, but most of the rest of the festival is competitive to a degree. I think competition gives an edge to your performance, perhaps makes you work a little harder. And I don't think that you will find any student that will not know really who did the best. So we don't stress competition, we stress the positive aspect of growth and personal growth as well as your musical growth with what you're doing. But at the same time, we want to recognize those students who are doing well and who are particularly talented and will perhaps go on to make more of a contribution to their community through their music.
Do you think a competition like this really helps a musician grow as a musician, being with people who do the same things they do?
Well, I think you get to measure yourself, what you do against what other people do in your same field. I think that you learn from the adjudicators. It's one of the major things is to get advice from these experts who we pay well to come and help these students grow. And we're all always growing. And there's never any one of us that knows it all about anything. So if the student approaches it in that manner, and we're very careful that our adjudicators also are very positive, but at the same time realistic. We don't want them to give the students unrealistic ideas about what they're doing. I mean, if you've played wrong notes, you've played wrong notes, and you know that. And so it would be foolish of us to say that was wonderful if in fact you had wrong notes. So I think that it's a very careful balance between the idea that you grow and learn and also that you are rewarded for excellence. And I think both those things are very important in all aspects of life.
Now, although this is a music festival, not all aspects of it have to do with music. There are other aspects as well as dance and speech, is that right?
Yes, well, the dancers would say they had a lot to do with music. The speech arts people tends to be more towards the dramatic arts, but has been a part of our festival ever since its inception 26 years ago. And we've had students go on and do very well. And it gives such confidence to these young people when they can stand up in front of an audience and deliver a piece. And it stands them in good stead in all aspects of their life. Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also the competition with mime and with Bible reading as well. Are those new to this competition?
No, they're not new. No, we've been doing those for years. And there again, the festival tries to always respond to needs in the community. And we have experts in each of these fields, local people who help us develop the syllabus and develop the program as to what we're going to offer for the students to compete in. And so those were some things sort of are a natural outgrowth of other things. And as the festival grows and builds, it also has to be flexible. And we're always looking for input and positive ideas to help us do this project better.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.